Not very often we get a chance to talk with our Congressman, Mark Sanford, home very briefly, back to D.C. First of all, our condolences about the passing of your mother. Yeah. Tell us a mom's. We all have mom stories. Tell us a story of how she inspired you maybe to do what it is you do.
I won't bore you with mom stories, but I'd just say she was a phenomenal woman, and each one of us loves her mom. And I think particularly as a son, there's a special place for a mom in your heart. And you know, she was one of those that, you know, after different, you know, sporting events, they'd say, is a little fella, you do well in some and not so well in the others. She was constantly supportive and constantly encouraging. I think that that's one of the things that we need as young people, is to say, you can do it. Keep on trying. You can do it. And so I don't know that that led directly to politics, but it certainly led to taking some of the body blows of up and down that go with politics.
Could that be some advice that could be used up on Capitol Hill right now? You can all do better. Keep on going. You can do better.
It'd be very good advice. It's very and the golden rule of treat others as you'd like to be treated, and that's something that's been lost in Washington of late. I mean, it's become a rather savage environment where it's not just about the ideas, but it's taking out the other person. And at the end of the day, we can have agreement or disagreement as Republicans, Democrats, Independents, as Northerners, Southerners, go down the different differentiations, but at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And I think we need to get back to a bit of that, and that's something that my mom constantly emphasized, this notion of, look, you can disagree with your brother, or you can disagree with your sister, but at the end of the day, you need to find a way to get along.
You've been talking healthcare an awful lot with a lot of people. You voted for the House side of healthcare to keep it moving more than anything, I think was what you said at the time. The Senate has, although it's probably changed by the time this airs, the Senate is working on it. Is the Senate's bill something you can support, or do you see some more changes that still need to be made?
We don't have a Senate bill at this point, so it's literally completely in motion at this point. You have a couple of different iterations. You know, Senator Cruz has a version. There are other versions out there of what it might be, but there's not consensus yet. And what I think we should all rejoice at, and people are getting very frustrated, like, just get something done. We should rejoice in our institutions. I know this sounds crazy, but we have a system that is designed to go slow. It's designed to guard against revolutionary change, because our founding fathers didn't want a king or a queen saying, this is the way we're going to do it. They wanted all of us to buy in, and through representation in the House and representation in the Senate, you'd come together, you'd create a law, and then the president would sign it or not sign it. And it's slow, it's cumbersome, it's awkward. But the fact that it's stalled in the Senate is basically the people's way of saying it ain't there yet. And I can walk into a Mexican restaurant here in Hilton Head and hear the same thing with people basically conflicted about what are we going to do, not going to do. Again, we haven't come together as Americans yet on what our healthcare system should look like in the individual marketplace. People are pretty happy with group insurance. They're pretty happy with Medicare. They're, in some cases, happy with Medicaid, depending on which state you live in. They're not happy with the individual marketplace, and rightfully so. In some cases, it left people, you know, facing crazy, huge, health insurance bills that could bankrupt them and their family and destroy every dream that they had for life. In other cases, just the cost of the premium was weighing them down. And so we're going to get there, but we should all take a breath and say the system is working if, in fact, it's pausing. Doesn't mean it's broken. It means it's saying we need to get it better.
Are you willing, you've been fairly strident in some of your opinions on different subjects, are you willing to make a deal here to take half a loaf, 2/3 of a loaf, 3/4 of a loaf, and not get everything you want out of the
well, it's nothing that I want. And it's at the end of the day what we all want, and one of the things I consistently hear, I've heard consistently from folks saying we want to leave portions of what we came to enjoy with the Affordable Care Act. And I said, you already won. I mean, baked into the cake is staying on your parents' plan to the age of 26. It was not there until the Affordable Care Act came along. Baked into the cake is this notion of differently treating pre-existing conditions than used to be the case. That's baked into the cake. What's not baked into the cake is affecting people's premiums. This lady that came to the hardware store over in Bluffton, she said, look, we've cut out all the other elements of our life. We used to do, this is going to be our glory years. We retired to Sun City. I'm not yet 65. I don't qualify for Medicare. I got 4 years to go, and we've cut everything else out. We don't know what to do. And so I would say essential to me is something that actually goes to impact premiums of people, whether they're self-employed or they're retired and just struggling, in between, retirement and age 65, that helps them with premiums. I think that's going to be an important variable for me in determining whether I vote yes or no on whatever might come next.
On the budget, you're on the budget committee. What's the priority list of where we have to get the thing done to get it done, between budget, between debt reduction, between tax reform, with all of those issues still on the table? Where do we have to take? What's got to come first, and then what's got to come second?
I would say the budget ought to come first in the budget. But oddly enough, for many people, it doesn't. It's saying we don't care what it looks like as long as it gets us to tax reform. And I think that that's putting the cart before the horse. Okay. I think that given the dire nature of our budget problem and what it means for every program that we might enjoy or appreciate that comes out of government, what it means for national defense, what it means for a whole host of federal functions, if we don't begin to get our budget mess right, and it is a mess, we're going to have much bigger problems down the road. So for me, having numbers that actually balance over a 10-year window are very, very important. And an additional benefit in this year would be it leads us to tax reform, but that's an additional benefit as opposed to the driver.
Last question, bipartisanship. We're not seeing a whole lot of it. This goes back to what you were talking about your mother.
Yeah.
How do we get the two sides of the aisle? You've been as good as anybody in trying to work with the other side, and yet your leadership hadn't been very good at it, and neither has the other side. Where do we go?
We either get it right or we're going to have real problems as a republic. We have to be able to get back to forging consensus that comes as a product of very, very different views and different strongly held beliefs, but still saying, at the end of the day, we have to come together and do something that moves forward on things that matter in people's lives. So you could go into the commentary of what's caused it, the proliferation of different cable news networks and the way people play to different audiences. You could go into some of the composition of some of the districts. You could go into campaign finance law. You could go into a bunch of different things that have contributed. But the bottom line is it's a problem. We better fix it or we're in trouble.
Can you get a couple of more of your Republican guys to get 3 or 4 of the Democrats together, and the 6, 7, or 8 or an even number of you fix this thing?
No, in fact, I just wrote an op-ed with a Democrat from California. On this very
California,
California, no less, coast to coast, and saying we got to find ways of more civilly engaging one another, because at the end of the day, a republic depends on it. We have to have a common meeting point, and that means a lot of different things in the way that we view facts, the way we discuss facts. I mean, go down. It has a lot of different ripples, but the bottom line is, we got to look for a way of meeting in the middle. On some doesn't mean you drop your principles or the things you believe in. It simply says, to your point, occasionally half a loaf is better than no loaf.
Congressman, thanks so much for the time. Good luck to you.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.